I want to talk about creating what we want. I help people create more what they want in their lives, to connect to innate clarity, to get clear what that is, the innate confidence to believe they can create that. And the first step, getting clarity in what we want, can be quite difficult. It sounds crazy to think about we don't know what we want. I was stuck in a job that wasn't really me, but I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I spent all my years up to that point, my mid-30s, creating the life I thought I should be creating. We're living outside in rather than true to our heart and our soul often. And one of the reasons is when we grow up, we think there are rules we need to adhere to. We're trying to work out the rules of life to feel loved, to feel safe in the tribe, where that tribe's the family unit or the friendship circle at school, a different sense of tribe. The remaining part of our brain thinks our survival is dependent on that. So growing up, I was more concerned about my mum's state of mind rather than what I wanted. I was trying to do what I needed to do to not get shouted at, for her to be angry. So in every moment, what I wanted was secondary. It was, if I do this, how's she going to react? If I do this, will she be upset? Because when I got shouted at, I felt more unloved. So I was working out the rules of life to feel more loved. I was quashing my heart's desires and listening more to my fear of being shouted at. The part of us that wants to feel loved. So listening to my heart just went out the window. My kind of analytical brain of working things out. If this happens, what will happen? If this happens, what will this happen? All that future thinking, that second guessing became my dominant kind of guidance mechanism. And then it happened wider in life. Not just my mum, it became my teachers, my friends. What do I need to do for them to think good of me, not think bad of me, not to judge me, to like me, to love me? So I became a people pleaser. Who I was secondary. I didn't know who I was. What I wanted was secondary. It became an unconscious way of living, creating a life of meeting expectations rather than true to my heart. Another set of expectations or limiting beliefs that stop us knowing what we want is those beliefs, those stories about what we deserve, what we're worth. Perhaps expectations coming from our childhood, what our parents earned, and maybe we can't earn more. Sometimes we feel guilty for maybe earning more than our parents. Sometimes we think we don't deserve that. It's not who we are. I can't have that. Who am I to have that? We have these stereotypes, these expectations about who we are. And they sometimes limit our thinking. They allow us to dream big or have a blank sheet of paper to really allow our heart to go where it wants to go. We're carrying expectations perhaps from our parents, or what we think life should look like, or society. And that limits us. It quashes our heart's desires. We think to justify what we want, living in our expectations from the past. So these stories, these limiting beliefs, these expectations, trying to work out the rules, keep us living in what I call outside in. Trying to live to life's external judgments, whether from society or our parents, their fears, their stuff. Rather living truly inside out, honouring our hearts, our soul. Sometimes it's easier to think about what we don't want rather than what we want. Wasn't a job that I wasn't really enjoying, wasn't really me. I had no idea what I wanted to do instead. So I wrote down on a bit of paper the aspects of a job, trying to describe a job I'd hate, the worst job in the world. Things like the length of commute, where I'd work, the environment I'd be working with, would I be working alone or with people, what kind of work would I be doing? And that helped me kind of realise what I don't want. That pointed me in the direction, okay, what do I do want? It's the opposite. It helped me begin to look in a direction of the kind of work that I would enjoy. So sometimes it's easier to describe what we don't want rather than what we do want. That can be a place to start. Another place to start is just flirting with ideas. When we don't know what we want, we have to just try things out, explore. When I realised I was living a life of expectations, I didn't know what I wanted in life, follow my bliss became my mantra, play became a way of being, doing things just for the hell of it, to explore? Do I enjoy it? How does that feel? I did things like I took up photography for a while. I had no interest in it before, but it just felt like a fun thing to explore. I started playing tennis more. I played a lot of tennis as a teenager. This was my mid-30s. I started playing tennis more because I missed it. I forgot how much I enjoyed it. I allowed myself to play more. Allow myself to ask what I want in this moment. To flirt with ideas, not having to justify my decisions. Allow myself to honour my heart. Honour my heart. And one thing that allows us to do that is permission, knowing we have permission to do that. We have permission to do that. It's okay to do that. It's believing in ourselves, believing it's okay to be happy, believing it's okay to have what we want. To have what we want. There's an exercise I got from William Whitecloud. It's about stepping into a golden circle of living the life of achieving a particular goal and really feeling it. Let your nervous system relax into it, feel it. What is it you believe about yourself more fully in that space? Who are you being having created that goal? And that's a place to come from, not a place to get to. That's my work with my clients is about changing their state of being, their relationship with themselves, living from that state of being now. That they're worthy. They believe they're worth it. They believe they can create it. They have innate confidence to know that it's possible. And they can do that. May not know exactly how yet, but it's one breadcrumb at a time. Just living from that space, believing it's true. Neville Goddard is another author I love. He says about living in the wish fulfilled. So imagine that wish has been fulfilled, living in that space, living in that feeling. It's a place to come from, not a place to get to. And a way of stretching, exploring what we want. A lovely exercise I got from this great book, The Aladdin Factor, by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. And there's an exercise in here, often I get my clients to do, is to write down a list of 100 things they want. And it's really interesting because sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it can take a long time. When I first did that, I had to come back to it time and time again over a couple of weeks to try and create that list. It was really hard. Sometimes I felt guilty. But it was really stretching that muscle of what do I want? And it's funny how a number of years later I found that list. And I went through it. It's amazing how many of those things I had actually created. And it's a wonderful story in this book. It's from one of the readers had written in to one of the authors. And it's about his experience of doing that exercise. And it starts, I took an evening course on goals, and the first night she gave us a blank booklet and said, write down a goal you have. And then she said, okay, write down another one. This went on for about 10 minutes, and we're all getting a bit bored. And then she said, write down another one. This went on for the entire 3 hours. All she did was say, write down a goal. Okay, write down another goal. Don't use the fact you can't think of another one not to write down the next goal. Just keep writing. For 3 hours. When it was all over, she said, okay, now I want you to do a special thing. I want you to write down a goal, but this one is special. This one you can wave a magic wand and you can write down anything you want. It doesn't have to obey the law. It doesn't have to obey gravity. It doesn't have to live up to any requirement of anything. Just imagine you have a magic wand. Now remember, I've been writing down goals for 3 hours. Everything I could think of, money, health, relationships, travel, anything I could think of for 3 hours. So I said to myself, okay, it doesn't have to obey the law. Okay, I want to live in a house full of beautiful naked women. It was embarrassing, but that is what I wrote down. I didn't tell anybody this for 10 years, but that's what I wrote down. I'd been dredging my mind to think of anything I could think of for 3 hours, so I just made that up. Sandra, the instructor, said, "Okay, I'll meet you here in 1 week from today for the next class. And by the way, that last one is the one that will get fulfilled." Everyone in the room gasped. When we returned to the class a week later, I was absolutely shocked because during that week I'd met a woman, Carla, who became my second wife. We went on a date and I went nuts over her and I asked if I could stay overnight. She said yes. I stayed overnight and in the morning her daughters, she had 2 little girls, came running in bare naked. And of course Carla was in bed with me naked. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm in a house full of beautiful naked women." Except of course 2 of them were 2 and 4 years old. I guess I forgot to be specific enough in my request. So I came to the class and the instructor said, "Put up your hand if you remember the very last goal you wrote down that was totally outrageous and didn't obey gravity or the law of anything. But put up your hand if it had already come true in 1 week." 50 of us, 1/4 of the people in the room, put up their hand. She said, "I've done this many times. It's the last one you just wrote down that always comes true. It's because I'm the teacher and because I said it with total conviction. I didn't try to convince you of it, in which case you'd be skeptical. I just announced it as an obvious fact." Of course, none of us had believed her at the time, and yet 1/4 of the people in the room had achieved their goal. We had goosebumps because people jumped up and said what their goals had been. They wanted their income to go up by a factor of 10. They wanted a 60-foot yacht, and meanwhile they were just a social worker or teacher. In the intervening week, a relative they didn't know had died and had inherited a 60-foot yacht. Our jaws dropped open for every one of them because originally Sandra had specifically said, "Make sure it doesn't obey gravity or have any restrictions of law or anything." So we went totally wild. Then she said something even more shocking. She said, "By the way, it happened because you all believed me." I stood up and said, "Sandra, I want to understand something. If you said a different one, then that's the one that 1/4 of us would have been fulfilled?" She said, "Yes. Sometimes I say it's the third one you wrote down." Everyone in the room opened their books and read the third one, because we could just as easily have created that instead. We were sitting there totally stunned. There were people in the room who were crying. She had told us that the second evening there's nothing out there. There are no rules. There's no law. It's not that we're lawless. It's rather you create with your mind so powerfully. It's all in what you believe is possible. Loving you.